All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. And ma'am, if you could just please introduce yourself to the jury again, spelling your last name for the record.
Sure. I'm Christina Hanley. Hanley is spelled Hanley.
And Ms. Hanley, given the break, if I could just ask you a few questions just to reorient as far as the items that we were speaking about yesterday in your testimony. First, starting with the items of glass that you analyzed in this case. The first of those items was an item 3-2, is that correct?
That's correct.
And if you could, please describe for the jury, or please provide the jury with the description for that item that you received.
Sure. So item 3-2 was a clear glass cup with broken irregular edges. And there was some dirt debris material that was noted on the exterior and interior surfaces.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes. Did you show counsel?
I gave Mr. Jackson my copy.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Showing you a photograph, Ms. Hanley, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that?
So this is a photograph that I took. It's item 3-2, but it's also, I would have to double check on my notes, but I believe it has item 7-12, one of the pieces that I'm holding, that's showing a physical match between those two items.
Your Honor, call will seek to introduce in a minute to the next exhibit.
No objection.
Okay.
Exhibit 195.
And Your Honor, may I publish?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9490. Ms. Hanley, what's up on the screen? Is that the photograph that I just presented to you?
Yes, it is.
And if you could, please describe for the jury what we're looking at here.
So that is a photograph that I took upon examination. It is the clear glass cup item 3-2. And I'm holding another piece, which, again, I believe it's one of the pieces from item 7-12. I would need to confirm in my file, but I'm showing that one of the pieces physically fits with item 3-2.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm showing you two other photographs. If you could look at those, look up when you're finished. And do you recognize those?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those as?
So these are photographs that I took of item 7-12.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth will seek to introduce in a minute the next exhibit A and B.
Is there any objection?
No objection.
Thank you.
Exhibits 196A and 196B.
And Ms. Hanley, if you could, just remind the jury as far as the physical description that you received in regard to item 7-12.
Sure. So item 7-12 consisted of some clear plastic pieces as well as 9 pieces of glass with broken irregular edges.
And may I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have first photograph 9476. And if you can enlarge that just a bit, Ms. Gilman. And Ms. Hanley, what are we looking at in this photograph?
So this is the photo that I took of item 7-12 as I received it. So there's the several pieces of clear glass with broken irregular edges.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9477. If you can enlarge that just a bit. And again, Ms. Hanley, what are we looking at in this photograph?
Those are the same pieces of glass as in the previous photo, just a little bit more up close of the clear glass that was recovered and is item 7-12.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Now, Ms. Hanley, as far as a comparative analysis between items in 3-2, the glass cup, and 7-12 regarding the glass pieces, what, if any, conclusions did you make in reference to your comparison between those two items?
Sure. So upon comparing those items, I did note that 6 of the 9 pieces of clear apparent glass had a physical match to item 3-2, the clear glass cup.
And if you could just remind the jury, as far as a physical match, what does that mean?
So a physical match is basically if an item breaks and those items have broken irregular edges, if those pieces come back together like a jigsaw fit, then it's a physical match and they were at one time together as one larger unit.
Now, as far as each of those items within 7-12 had a letter associated with them, correct?
Yes.
And do you recall which of the 6 were a physical match for item 3-2, the glass?
I would just need to refer to my notes for the exact letters.
Sure, you can take your report out. Okay.
The 6 pieces of glass from item 7-12 that physically fit to item 3-2 were A, B, C, D, F, and K.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Well, let me ask you this first. I'm sorry. So, Ms. Hanley, during the course of this physical match analysis that you're conducting, are you memorializing that process with photographs as well?
Yes, I am.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
And I'm presenting you with 4 photographs. If you could review those and look up when you finish. And do you recognize those, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those?
Those are photographs that I took upon my examination of items 7-12 and item 3-2.
Your Honor, the combo is introduced in the minutes. The next exhibits, A through D.
No objection.
Thank you.
Exhibits 197A through D.
And may I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9502, please. And Ms. Hanley, what's up on the screen? Can you please describe for the jury what we're looking at in this photograph?
So this is one of the photos that I took of one of the breaks that physically fit together between item 3-2 and item 7-12.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9514. And again, Ms. Hanley, can you please describe for the jury what we're looking at in this photograph?
Sure. So this is a photo that I took when I was doing my comparison of item 3-2 and several pieces from item 7-12.
Now, as far as the individual pieces had sort of little white stickers or labels affixed to them, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that something that you did, or is that something that when the items were provided to you was already done?
So item 7-12, I received those pieces with the labels already on them.
And again, those items, especially 7-12, had been with mixed veneer in your unit prior to coming to your table or your station, correct?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9518. Again, Ms. Hanley, what are we looking at here?
So this is another photograph that I took of the physical match. It's just another view of the items together of item 3-2 and several pieces from item 7-12.
And lastly, for this batch, Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9520. And again, Ms. Hanley, what are we looking at here?
So this is another picture that I took of the items just slightly rotated of item 3-2 with a physical fit to several items or several pieces from item 7-12.
Ms. Hanley, is there a laser pointer on the desk in front of you?
Yes.
If you could, preferably using this screen just so it's visible for the jury, could you delineate where you see in this photograph item 3-2 and where you see the items associated with item 7-12?
So this right here is item 3-2, and these pieces up here are several pieces from 7-12.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Now, the other two items that you analyzed or examined in this part of your physical match analysis were items 3-3 and 7-14, correct?
That's correct.
And turning your attention specifically to item 3-3, if you could just remind the jury as far as the physical description of that item that was provided to you.
Sure. So item 3-3 was 5 pieces of clear glass with broken irregular edges that were recovered from the bumper of the vehicle.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Single photograph. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that?
That is a photo that I took of item 3-3.
Your Honor, Commonwealth will seek to introduce in the minutes the next exhibit.
No objection, Mr. Jackson?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 198.
And may I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9446, please. And Ms. Hanley, in addition to the 5 pieces of glass associated with item 3-3, what else is depicted in this photograph?
This is a photo of the 5 total pieces that are from item 3-3.
And in addition to that, is there a ruler depicted in this photograph as well?
Yes, there is.
And what is the purpose of that ruler in the photograph?
It's there just as a scale.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that one down. And Ms. Hanley, the last of those items, 7-14, if you could just remind the jury as far as what was the physical description that was provided to you in reference to item 7-14.
Sure. So item 7-14 was a clear piece of glass with broken irregular edges that was recovered from the road.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Again, Ms. Hanley, just showing you a single photograph. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize?
This is a photo that I took of item 7-14.
Your Honor, Commonwealth will seek to introduce in the minutes the next exhibit. No objection.
All right.
Exhibit 199.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9471, please.
So
And again,
the two screens don't match. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Hanley, again, if you could just describe for the jury what it is depicted in the photograph up on the screen.
This is the photo that I took of item 7-14.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. So, Ms. Hanley, in addition to the physical match analysis that you did between item 3-2, the cup, and 6 of the pieces that you found to be a physical match from item 7-12, did you also compare pieces from item 3-2, 7-12, and 7-14?
Yes, I did.
And what did you conclude in your physical match analysis of those items together?
So, upon examining and comparing item 3-2, 7-12, and 7-14, I had concluded that 6 of the 9 pieces of glass from 7-12 physically fit with item 3-2, and the remaining 3 of the 9 from 7-12 did not have a physical fit to item 3-2. I also compared item 3-2 and 7-12 to 7-14, but there was no physical match to item 7-14.
Now, in addition to that, did you also do a physical match analysis between item 3-2, the drinking glass, 7-12, pieces found from the roadway, and certain pieces from 3-3 from the bumper of the vehicle?
Yes, I did.
And what did you conclude based on that physical match analysis between those items?
So upon examining and comparing those items, so there were 5 total pieces of glass from item 3-3. I used 2 of those pieces for physical match comparison to the items recovered from the road. Upon my examination, I did not, there was no physical match between those 2 pieces from item 3-3 to any of the pieces recovered from the road. So that included items 3-2, 7-12, and 7-14.
Now, as far as the 2 pieces that you had selected from item 3-3, do you recall which of those 2 lettered pieces you chose for your comparative analysis?
Yes.
And which were they?
They were pieces A and B.
And if I could ask why pieces A and B versus other pieces?
So A and B were used for physical match. The remaining 3 of the 5 were not used for physical match comparison due to their size and condition.
Now, those same 2 pieces from item 3-3, pieces A and B, did you then do a physical match analysis between that and 7-14?
I did.
And what did you conclude from that analysis?
I concluded that there was no physical match between the 2 pieces from item 3-3 to item 7-14.
Now, did you also do a physical match analysis between piece E from item 3-3 from the bumper?
I did not. No, not a physical match examination.
Did you do any comparative analysis between a piece of glass E from 3-3 from the bumper and item 7-14?
Yes, I did.
And what did you conclude from that analysis?
So I selected piece E for further examination. I did microscopic examination as well as instrumental analysis, and I did the same microscopic and instrumental analysis to 7-14, and I compared the data, and I came to the conclusion that the piece that I sampled from item 3-3, piece E, was found to be consistent in physical and instrumental properties to the sample that I took from item 7-14.
If you could, Ms. Hanley, could you please explain to the jury when you say instrumental analysis, what is that? What does that consist of?
So the instrumental analysis that I conducted was on the GRIM instrument, which measures the refractive index of the samples. So after I had ran my samples for both item 3-3 and 7-14, I compared the data to determine whether they were consistent or not consistent.
And so when you say that something is consistent in instrumental properties, what does that mean?
So in this instance, they had consistent refractive indices.
Now, in addition to that comparative analysis for the glass items, what other additional examinations did you perform in this case?
Sorry, could you say that again?
In addition to items 3-2, 3-3, 7-12, and 7-14, what other items did you look at in this case?
So I also examined item 3-1 and item 7-18.18.
And what was the description provided to you in reference to item 3-1?
3-1 was a tail light, and there were also some other plastic pieces as well.
And taillight from the same vehicle as the glass from the bumper, correct?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
When you have another single photograph, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that?
This is the photo that I took of item 3-1.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth will seek to introduce in the minutes.
No objection.
Thank you.
Exhibit 200.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9394. And Ms. Hanley, do you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 200?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize it to be?
This is the photo that I took of item 3-1.
And what's contained in here, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what the item 3-1, the taillight housing, looked like when you received it?
Yes.
Now, as far as, and we'll get to this more a bit in a moment, but as far as any sort of comparative analysis that you did with any other item, what part of this taillight housing were you comparing to that other item?
So there were clear and red plastic portions of the taillight that appeared to be broken. So I sampled portions of the clear plastic as well as the red plastic on the taillight.
And just for clarity purposes, if you could with the pointer, as far as which of these pieces up on the screen were you sampling the clear and or the red plastic from?
So the red plastic that I sampled was from this area to a little hard to tell from here. I think I'd have to refer to my photo in my notes, but I think there were a couple of different areas that had clear broken plastic. I think this might have been one of the areas that was broken that I sampled.
And just for my purposes, really what I'm asking, Ms. Hanley, is the clear plastic that you used from item 3-1 was from the housing unit itself, the large piece, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Now, the other item that you were comparing this to was item 7-18.18. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what was provided to you as the description of that item, 7-18.18?
So 7-18.18 was debris that was collected from 2 pieces of clothing from the victim.
And specifically, that would be 7-17, an orange T-shirt. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct, yeah.
Okay, as well as 7-18, a gray long sleeve shirt. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when you say that item 7-18.18 contained debris, what did that debris consist of?
So the debris consisted of one clear piece of plastic, as well as several pieces of red plastic, among some other trace material.
Now, were there measurements taken of those items within the debris, specifically the clear plastic and the red plastic?
Yes.
And what were those measured to be?
I would just need to refer to my report for that.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so the clear piece of plastic in 7-18.18, it measured approximately 1/8 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch. And then I measured the largest and the smallest of the red plastic pieces. And the largest piece of red plastic measured approximately 1/16 of an inch by less than 1/16 of an inch. And the smallest piece among those measured approximately less than 1/16 of an inch by less than 1/16 of an inch.
And so those particular pieces that you measured, about how small are we talking about?
So the largest for the red plastic, the largest piece measured, just for visual purposes, it's roughly like the size of a grain of rice. The rest of the pieces were smaller than that.
And who within the lab provided that debris in that taillight housing to your unit, to the trace unit?
So the debris from the clothing was transferred to my unit by Maureen Hartnett, and the taillight was submitted to the lab by Trooper Christopher Moore.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you a series of 5 photographs. You could review those and look up when you're finished. Generally speaking, Ms. Hanley, do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those?
Those are the photographs that I took of 7-18.18.
the Commonwealth to seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit, A through E.
No objection.
Thank you.
Exhibits 201, A through B.
And Your Honor, may I publish?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 9352. And Ms. Hanley, what is depicted in this photograph on the screen?
So this is one of the photos that I took of 7-18.18. This is how I received the clear piece of plastic.
And is that a tin that it's encased in at the time that you receive it?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9355. And what is this, Ms. Hanley?
So this is a photo of the clear piece of plastic that was within that tin.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9364. And Ms. Gilman, if you could enlarge this just a bit. Maybe just a little more, please. Thank you. And Ms. Hanley, what are we looking at in this photograph?
This is the photo that I took of the debris that was collected from the clothing items.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 9366. And again, Ms. Hanley, what are we looking at here?
This is a photo that I took under a microscope of the red plastic pieces that I noted within the debris.
And lastly, Ms. Gilman, if we could have photograph 9369. And Ms. Hanley, what are we looking at here?
This is a picture that I took of the red plastic pieces that I removed from the debris.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Now, Ms. Hanley, in reference to your comparative analysis from item 3-1, the taillight housing plastic, to the clear and red plastic pieces of debris from debris from item 7-18.18, the clothing of Mr. O'Keefe, what types of instruments did you utilize in this comparative analysis?
Sure. So after completing my examination, I utilized a comparison microscope as well as a polarized microscope, a FTIR, which is a Fourier transform infrared spectrometer, and I also used a microspectrophotometer, also known as a microspec.
And what is a microspec?
So a microspec is an analytical tool that we can use to examine samples that have color. So it provides information on the sample's dyes and pigments.
And how is that utilized in your comparative analysis?
So I ran samples from both items that I was comparing, and I compared the data from those two items as a part of my comparative analysis.
And when you run that sort of data, can you describe for the jury sort of what that data looks like? Like what are you physically seeing when you're examining the data from a microspec?
So what we refer to it as a spectrum or just a graph, and when we do the comparison, we can overlay those spectra or graph to determine if they are consistent or not consistent.
And I know you spoke a little bit about it in your testimony yesterday, but if you could remind the jury as far as an FTIR, what is that and how is that used in your analysis?
So an FTIR is another analytical tool that we can use. A sample is exposed to infrared light, and it reacts in a certain way with that light. And what's produced is a spectrum of peaks and valleys that are representative and unique to your sample. And so that instrument was used to run samples from both items, and then the data was compared from both items.
Now, from your comparison of starting with the clear plastic from the debris from Mr. O'Keefe's clothing, from your comparative analysis of that clear plastic to the clear plastic from item 3-1, the tail light, what did you conclude?
So the clear plastic from the debris was found to be consistent in color and instrumental properties to the clear plastic from the tail light. So accordingly, the clear plastic from the debris could have originated from the clear plastic from the tail light or from another source with the same characteristics.
And with reference to the red plastic from item 7-18.18 from Mr. O'Keefe's clothing, in your comparison of that red plastic with the red plastic from the passenger side tail light of the defendant's vehicle, item 3-1, what did you conclude from that analysis?
So the red plastic that I sampled from item from the debris from the clothing from 7-18.18 was found to be consistent in color, microscopic appearance, and instrumental properties with the portions that I sampled from the red plastic from the tail light. So accordingly, the red plastic from item 7-18.18 could have originated from the red plastic that I sampled from the tail light or from another source with the same characteristics.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, if I could just hold on 1 minute while the sirens pass. May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes. Actually, is this a good time to take a break, Mr. Lally? Luncheon break?
Entirely up to the court. I probably have another 3-4 minutes left.
I'm going to see counsel for 2 minutes, Bob. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Hanley, when we left off, you were discussing the comparative analysis you did between item 7-18.18, Mr. O'Keefe's clothing, and item 3-1, the taillight housing or the plastic within the taillight housing of the defendant's car, correct?
Correct.
And there were a number of different instruments that you used through the course of your examination and analysis, correct?
That's correct.
And what were those instruments that you used again in that portion of the analysis?
Sure. So I used a polarized light microscope, a comparison microscope, an FTIR, and a microspec.
And, Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Showing you 3 documents, if you could review those with me finish, please. And do you recognize those?
Yes, I do.
And starting with the first page of that 3 pages, what do you recognize that?
It is the FTIR comparison data for the clear plastic from item 3-1 and the clear plastic from item 7-18.18.
And if I could direct your attention to the second page within that, what do you recognize that?
So this is also FTIR comparison data from for the red plastic from item 3-1 and item 7-18.18.
And lastly, the third page within that set, what do you recognize that?
So this is the comparison data from the microspec from the red plastic from the item 3-1 and the red plastic from 7-18.18.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth will seek to introduce and admit as the next three exhibits individually.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
You want them marked individually, or are you going to set?
Individually, please. Thank you.
Exhibits 202, 203, and 204.
Thank you.
And again, Ms. Hanley, when it came to your analysis of the clear plastic material from the debris from John O'Keefe's clothing and the clear plastic material from the defendant's taillight, what were your conclusions from that analysis?
Sure. Upon comparison, the clear plastic from item 7-18.18 was found to be consistent in color and instrumental properties with the clear plastic from item 3-1. Accordingly, the clear plastic from 7-18.18 could have originated from the clear plastic from item 3-1 or from another source with the same characteristics.
Thank you. Your Honor, may I publish, and I'm sorry, I forgot already the
Yes.
exhibit numbers, but
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have the clear plastic. And Ms. Hanley, can you describe for the jury what we're looking at in this, what's up on the screen right now?
Sure. So this is the FTIR comparison data of the clear plastic from item 3-1 and the clear plastic from item 7-18.18.
And Ms. Hanley, if you could, using the laser pointer before you, if you could direct the jury's attention to which is which as far as the top and bottom here.
Sorry. The top,
I'm sorry, I apologize, Your Honor.
That's okay.
the top spectrum is item 3-1, and the bottom spectrum is item 7-18.18.
And Ms. Hanley, when you're comparing these two as far as the data that you receive, what is it specifically that you're looking at in your comparison as far as the data is concerned?
So when I'm comparing the spectra, I'm looking at the peaks in each sample to determine if they are consistent or not consistent.
Thank you. And if I could turn your attention to the red plastic material from the debris from Mr. O'Keefe's clothing and the red plastic from the passenger side taillight of the defendant's vehicle, what did you conclude in your analysis there?
So upon comparison, the red plastic from 7-18.18 was found to be consistent in color, microscopic appearance, and instrumental properties with the red plastic from item 3-1. So accordingly, the red plastic from 7-18.18 could have originated from the red plastic from item 3-1 or from another source with the same characteristics.
Thank you. And Ms. Gilman, if I could have the red plastic data. And Ms. Hanley, directing your attention to the screen again with the laser pointer, if you could delineate for the jury as far as which set of data is associated with which item.
So the top spectrum is item 3-1, and the bottom spectrum is item 7-18.18.
And again, if you could just direct the jury's attention with that laser pointer to the areas as far as the data peaks and valleys that you're looking at in comparison of this data.
So when I'm comparing them, I'm comparing the peaks to each other in each of the spectra to determine if they are consistent or not consistent.
And in this case, you found them to be consistent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And Ms. Gilman, lastly, if I could have the microspec data. And Ms. Hanley, if you could describe for the jury, please, what are we looking at in this particular data set?
So this is the comparison data from the microspec of the red plastic from item 3-1 and the red plastic from 7-18.18.
And as far as the data in any microspec, but particularly this one up on the screen, using that laser pointer, could you illustrate to the jury sort of what these individual lines or what this data means?
So these are the samples that I ran, and samples that I ran from item 3-1 and 7-18.18, and the spectra are overlaid in order to determine, to look at it and to determine whether they have a consistent or not consistent pattern.
And from overlaying the data from the pieces of plastic from Mr. O'Keefe's clothing and the pieces of plastic from the defendant's taillight, what do you observe as far as from overlaying those two sort of data points?
So I determined that they had consistent microspec data.
Again, if you could just remind the jury as far as the microspec data, what type of data is that?
So the microspec, it analyzes samples that have color. So it provides information of a sample's dyes or pigments.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Thank you, Ms. Hanley. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hanley.
Good afternoon.
Nice to see you again. We met about a year ago. First things first, you were just talking about some plastic pieces in 7-18.8, correct?
It was 7-18.18.
0.18. I left a 1 out. 7-18.18. We're dealing with a lot of numbers. I'm going to see if we can cut through that here in a second.
Sure.
First of all, you indicated that you were doing a comparative analysis in different different categorical ways, using microscopy, using the microspec, using the FTIR. I think you also use the FTIR in that as well.
Yes.
And you indicated that your analysis concluded with those pieces could have come from the same source, from the source in 3-1, the taillight. But you're not conclusively saying they did, correct?
It could have come from, they could have a common origin, or it could have come from another source with the same characteristics.
Right. So in other words, another way to say that, Ms. Hanley, is it may have come from the taillight, may not have.
It's a possibility.
Okay. I also want to ask you real quick about the taillight manufacturer. You were shown an exhibit. I think it's Exhibit 200, and I think we have that available. With the court's permission, we don't have to cut the lights. I think the lighting is just fine. This is exhibit, or a photograph of Exhibit 200 that you saw just a second ago. Quick question about that. In your inspection of that taillight, it's true, is it not, that that is manufactured entirely of plastic or plasticine pieces? There is no glass in that taillight, correct?
I have to check my notes. I don't think I noted any glass.
Okay. So in other words, you didn't note any glass inherent in the manufacture of that taillight. It's basically plastic.
Yeah, I think most of the parts were plastic. I'm not 100% sure if the entire thing was plastic. There may have been other material, but portions were plastic.
But you certainly didn't see any glass inherent in the manufacture process.
I'd have to double check my notes, but I don't think I did.
Okay.
Do you want her to check her notes?
Why don't you?
No problem.
Are your notes in front of you?
Yes.
With the court's permission.
Sure.
Okay, so I did not make any notation that I noted portions that were glass.
Great. Final point before we get into the actual analysis. On any of the glass, I want to shift gears to just the glass material that you analyzed and that you looked at and you inspected. You saw no blood, no skin, no biological material, no tissue, human tissue or otherwise, on any of those pieces that you inspected, did you?
Upon examination of those items, making observations of those types of material, that's not my area of expertise. I don't think I noted anything that was maybe consistent with that.
So in other words, even though you're not in the bio material expert section of the lab, you certainly would have noted if there was skin or biological material or obvious blood on glass pieces. You were looking at them in many cases through a stereo microscope, correct?
Yes, I would have made note of observations of anything that I would have noted on the surface.
Great, and you did not, because you didn't see anything that was suggestive of that, correct?
I think I just made note. I have to check each item, but I think I did note that there was some dirt debris on some of the items.
But not biological material.
I did not note anything that would be maybe consistent with that.
Great, thank you. I want to talk about the comparisons that you did. And you'll forgive me, I'm a visual learner. So I'd like to talk about it in 4 categories.
Okay.
Linear categories. Category 1, item 3-2. Category 2, item 3-3. Category 3, item 7-12. Category 4, item 7-14. 3-2, 3-3, 7-12, 7-14. Can we talk about them in those particulars?
Sure.
Okay. 3-2 was the cup, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I'm going to use the word cup rather than glass for obvious reasons. You can get confused by that. So when I say the cup, do you know what I'm talking about?
Item 3-2.
Great. 3-3 are the 5 items that were found on the bumper, claimed to have been found on the bumper by MSP or the crime. Okay?
Yes.
5 items, A, B, C, D, and E, correct?
Correct.
Item 7-12 are 9 items, glass items, that were recovered at 34 Fairview by Trooper Buchanan in an evidence envelope, correct?
So sustained as to who they were recovered from.
Sure. Did you receive the items along with an evidence envelope?
I need to double check if it was an envelope, but I received it packaged.
Okay. And the packaging normally, under normal circumstances, the packaging comes with labels that gives you reference about where things came from. For instance, when Mr. Lally asked you, were you aware or did you become aware that items were claimed to have been found on the bumper? You didn't actually find those items, but that was the description you were given, correct?
That was the description of the item in our limb system.
Okay. And going back to 7-12, that's our third category, was that described as 9 pieces of glass that were found at 34 Fairview by a sergeant by the name of Buchanan? Or do you recall that?
I am not sure who recovered them.
Or what it said on the evidence envelope? That's what I'm asking.
I would have to check my photos to see if it says that.
We'll get to that in just a second. But fair enough. 7-12, 9 items, A, B, C, D, E. And if my memory serves, I, K, and L.
And I'd have to refer to my notes to.
Can you please?
Yes. So the 9 pieces of glass from 712 were labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, I, K, and L.
Great. And then finally, what was in 714, that's an easy one, 1 piece of glass.
That's correct.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
If I could, Ms. Hanley, I'm going to hand you photographs. That should be 2 photographs of the exact same thing. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
I've never seen. I did not take this photo.
Understood.
So I'm not. I haven't seen them, so I don't know.
So I'm asking you to look. I know you haven't seen that photo. Does it look like the cup?
It looks consistent with the cup.
Okay. Just gonna set this one aside for a second. Take a look at the second photo. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photo?
So I did not take this photo. It appears to be a photo of a container that another analyst took a photo of item 7-12.
And item 7-12 once again included plastic pieces and 9 glass pieces, correct?
Correct.
Do you see the evidence label on the very top of that evidence envelope?
I'm not sure which label you're talking about.
One under the red tape.
Yes.
Does that appear to be a label marker that's done to maintain chain of custody?
So I think that label. Sorry.
Sure, can we bring these over to someone?
Sure.
So you can cut that from down here.
Thank you. Ms. Hanley, I was asking you previously, we'd already looked at what's been marked for identification as triple G. I was asking you about what has now been marked as triple H. If you'll just look at that, what I'm most interested in is, do you see a name a trooper's name in the middle of that evidence bag?
Yes, I do.
Is that Buchanan?
It looks like it says that, yeah.
Okay. And just so we're clear, that bag is associated with 7-12 of your analysis. The item 7-12, correct?
Yes, again, I didn't take this photo, but I have,
I
yeah.
realize that. It says 7-12
Yeah.
right on the photo.
Yes, yeah.
That's all I need. Taking a look at what's been marked as III for identification. Do you see a name associated with that evidence bag?
Yes.
What name is that?
It's actually a little hard to read. It looks like it says, it could say Trooper Proctor.
Okay. And that is associated with 7-14, our fourth category, correct?
It is labeled as, excuse me, 7-14.
Thank you. Finally, does that, which has been marked as, for identification at least, as J, does that appear to be the contents of that bag, which is a single piece of glass in 7-14?
This appears to be the photo that the analyst prior to me took of item 7-14.
And that would be Analyst Valier.
Correct.
You see her initials there.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So the four categories, just so we're clear and we can stop using so many numbers because they can get confusing. 3-2 is the cup, right?
Yes.
3-3 is the bumper glass, correct?
That is correct.
7-12 is the Buchanan glass, correct? You just looked at it.
Yes.
Okay. 7-14 is the Proctor glass, the single piece, correct?
Correct.
So when I make reference to those items by those names, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yes.
Hesitant.
No, I just, I'm just used to referring to them to the item numbers, but I will try to stay with you.
My brain will melt if we continue that way.
Can she do it both, Mr. Jackson?
Sure. Any way that you wish. I have another document that I would like to approach with, if I could, with the court's permission.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd like you to take a look at that. You've got a copy of this. Have you ever seen that before, or a variation of it?
Yes.
Okay. Saw it last year, correct? Or something close to it last year?
Yeah, it looks consistent.
Okay.
I'm sorry, may we approach on this?
Okay. If there are any others, Mr. Jackson, why don't we bring all the...
This is it.
So I think I gave somebody the copy that I was using. I need a copy.
If I may approach?
Yes. Thank you. All right, so let's mark this first for identification.
Happy to.
Exhibit KKK for ID.
Ms. Hanley, if I could ask you very briefly, I want to go through this chalk with you for a moment. Do you recognize something on the left, looking at the first category? Do you see 3-2?
Yes.
How is that described?
It's described as a cup.
Okay, and you see that there's a photographic representation of the cup just above it, correct?
It looks consistent with...
Okay. Moving to the second category. What category is that?
It's item 3-3.
And 3-3, first of all, there's a photograph above it. Do you see that?
Yes.
It appears to be of a bumper, correct?
Yes.
You didn't take that picture.
I did not.
Okay, let's look down beneath it. You indicated that there were 5 items in 3-3, A, B, C, D, and E, correct?
Correct.
Do you see A, B, C, D, and E represented in that category on this chalk?
I do see A, B, C, D, E. Categorized, yes.
Great. Under A, you previously testified that the bumper glass sub A in 3-3 did not match the cup, correct?
That's correct.
Did not match anything in 7-12?
Sorry, just give me one moment. That's correct.
And did not match anything in 7-14?
That's correct.
And you see those represented by sort of the international symbol for negative, correct? A circle with a line through it, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Under subcategory B, glass B, or item 3-3B, did not match the cup, did not match 7-12, did not match 7-14.
That's correct.
Is that accurately represented on the chart?
Yes.
Finally, with regard to E as an echo in that same item, 3-3, you see that there is a green indication that glass recovered by Proctor does match, or did match in your analysis, or was consistent with the item in 7-14, correct?
It was consistent microscopically and instrumentally.
Does that accurately reflect that finding on this chalk?
Yes.
Okay, now turning to category 3. There were 9 pieces of glass that you looked at, correct?
Correct.
A through F, I, K, and L. Is that right?
If I could just reference my report to make sure.
Of course.
Yes, those are the correct letters.
And A, B, C, D, F, and K all matched the cup, correct?
Again, I would just need to confirm with my report.
Take your time.
Yes, so A, B, C, D, F, and K
All matched the cup.
had a physical match to 3-2, the cup.
Is that accurately represented on this chart? With green.
Yes.
And E is in Echo, I is in India, and I think that's L is in Lima, did not match the cup, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, is that accurately represented on this chart?
Yes.
And finally, the last category, 7-14, that is the single piece of glass that was recovered by Trooper Proctor. That did not match the cup, and it did not match anything in 7-12, correct? And if you need to check your notes, feel free.
Yes, that's correct.
Is that accurately represented on the chart?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admission with the amendment that the court indicated at sidebar of triple K.
Okay, I'm going to allow it in.
205.
205?
Yeah.
Your Honor, the court indicated that it would like to see us before anything's published to the jurors.
Okay, come on over for a second. Actually, have those have those been done?
It has been done, and
Okay.
I was going to explain at sidebar.
All right, then come on over.
Request permission to publish.
Yes.
Ms. Hanley, you see the chalk that's been, or actually what's been marked as Exhibit 205 in evidence on the screen?
Yes.
Is that consistent with what you and I were just talking about at the witness stand?
Yes.
If you'll direct your attention to the screen on the right, just because it's a little easier and I think the laser pointer shows up a little better. Do you see the 4 categories represented in this exhibit?
Yes.
Okay. So 3-2, I'm going to go over it very quickly one more time. just visually. 3-2 on the left is the cup, correct?
Yes.
3-3 represents the 5 pieces of glass of what we call the bumper glass, A, B, C, D, and E, correct?
Yes.
7-12 is the 9 pieces of glass recovered by Trooper Buchanan at 34 Fairview, correct?
Yes.
And finally, 7-14 is the single piece of glass recovered by Trooper Proctor, correct?
Yes.
Taking these one by one, just so everybody see. Taking these one by one, looking at starting with the bumper glass, category 2. Piece A did not match the cup, anything in 7-12 or anything in 7-14, correct?
That's correct.
Piece B did not match the cup, did not match anything in 7-12, did not match anything in 7-14, correct?
That's correct.
And moving over to category 3, there were some matches in these 9 items, 6 of them, A, B, C, D, F, and K, correct?
Yes.
But what those matched, Ms. Hanley, with a cup, nothing on the bumper, correct?
Correct.
And what didn't match the cup were E, I, and L. Is that right?
That's correct.
Moving back to category 2, however, there was one thing, item E, that did match something in this series of categories. Isn't that right?
Not a physical match, but instrumentally there was consistency.
All right. And this was an item, the only piece of bumper glass, the only piece of bumper glass to match anything else in your analysis. Matched what? What was consistent with what?
Item 3-3, piece E, was consistent in physical and instrumental properties with the sample that I took from item 7-14.
Which is the single piece of glass recovered by Michael Proctor, correct?
Yes.
But not a single piece of glass, nothing that you analyzed coming from that bumper matched the cup, did it? Nothing.
Physical match comparison, there was no physical match comparison to the cup.
Are we done with this, Mr. Jackson?
We can take this down, Your Honor. Your Honor, that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Lally?
Now, Ms. Hanley, as far as you were asked some questions on cross-examination about biological pieces or tissue or things being on the glass, and you referenced that that was done in another unit, correct?
Yes, if that type of examination was needed, that would be done in a different unit.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow that, but next question.
Which unit would that be conducted in?
Objection.
So the objection sustained. You need more, Mr. Lally, before you move on.
Now, as far as the chalk that you were just presented, as far as the 4 photographs that were depicted in there, have you ever seen any of those 4 photographs before?
No.
Do you know specifically who or where any of the items 3- through 3-2, 3-3, 7-12, or 7-4 were physically recovered from?
I just have the description that's put in the LIMS system when it's submitted to the lab.
And do you know that 3-2, the drinking glass, was recovered by the Canton Police Department on January 29th, 2022?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you know that item 3-3, the bumper glass, was recovered by Ms. Maureen Hartnett from your lab on February 1st, 2022?
Sustained.
Do you know that each of the 4 items were recovered by different people on different
Objection,
dates
Your
at
Honor.
different locations?
May we approach?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Hanley, from your conclusions that you testified about before, you found that the item 3-2, the drinking glass, was consistent with 6 different pieces from item 7-12 that were found in the roadway outside of 34 Fairview Road, correct?
That's correct.
And you also found that piece E from item 3-3, the bumper glass, was consistent with the single piece from item 7-14 that was found in the roadway outside of 34 Fairview Road. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you also found that items from 7-18.18, the debris from Mr. O'Keefe's clothing, were consistent with the item 3-1, the taillight housing, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained as to form.
Now, as far as the chalk that you were presented with on cross-examination, was there anything in there about item 7-18.18 or item 3-1, either the taillight housing or the debris from Mr. O'Keefe's clothing?
No, there was not.
Nothing further.
Anything?
Very briefly. So in sum, not a single piece of glass on that bumper could be connected to that cup, correct?
There was no physical match to the pieces that I compared for physical match from the bumper. There was no physical match to the glass cup 3-2.
Thank you. So another way of saying that is not a single piece of glass that you analyzed on that bumper matched that cup, correct?
Sustained.
But the one piece of glass that did match something came from the same source, or was consistent with coming from the same source as the single piece of glass recovered or in the possession of or bagged by Trooper Michael Proctor, correct?
It was consistent with item 7-14.
That's all.
All right, Ms. Hanley, you are all set. I'm going to see counsel for a minute.